started the meeting, you might want to come up here so that Patricia and I can hear you. She's talking.
First of all, I want to thank you for having the meeting here and instead of upstairs. We had a couple of people leave because
We didn't know we were conversation.
I know that I was just hoping you, and I didn't realize that he was outside either. I was just hoping that he would. That's not right, you got it. That's right. Two questions. One, as these items come up on the agenda, are we able to speak on those items at that time, or do we have to speak on them now?
No, if they're on the agenda, speak about them at that time when you're called upon.
Oh, okay. Let's see if there's anything. No, that'll be, we can just talk to them and, yeah, come up.
Yes, sir.
I will be recording this meeting for Bill Lyman.
I can't hear you.
I will be recording the meeting for Bill Lyman.
Oh, thank you very much. And your name?
Slater Alden.
So in case anybody missed that, this meeting is being recorded.
Anybody else?
Yes, Tom.
Yeah, I wanted to make known about a letter that I wanted the select board to consider. It's not on the meeting agenda for tonight. I'm hoping it will be on the agenda for 2 weeks from now regarding the Vermont Yankee reactor and the emergency planning zone, which the company owner is proposing that that the zone be eliminated and the time that if there's a problem there with the cooling out, with the building with all the fuel rods in it, be extended. So I can read the letter. I think David made copies of it. I would just like it to be made known between now and the next meeting, when it can be talked about more formally.
Do you expect a lot of time to be spent on this, questions and so forth?
No.
You don't? Okay. Then go ahead and read the letter.
Okay. And this is draft language. The town of Gill adopted this, and that's where I got the language from. And it's to our representatives. I'm not going to read through all the names. Warwick is one of 18 towns in Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire that have some or all of the towns within a 10-mile radius of the Entergy Vermont Yankee nuclear plant in Vernon, Vermont. This means we are within the plant's emergency planning zone, EPZ, an area that has in place, maintained, and predetermined protective action plans designed to avoid or reduce potential exposure to radioactive material. These action plans include sheltering, evacuation, and the use of potassium iodide where appropriate. Entergy Nuclear, the parent company of Entergy Vermont Yankee, has applied to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, for an exemption that will allow it to end funding for the EPZ. Additionally, Entergy Nuclear has asked the NRC for an exemption that will allow the plant a fourfold increase in the amount of time it has to notify surrounding towns of an emergency. Currently, the plant must notify within 15 minutes. Entergy Nuclear seeks an exemption to increase this to 60 minutes. The Warwick Select Board, this is proposed, opposes both exemption requests. We ask you, our elected representatives and public officials, to assure that the EPZ funding is continued until the spent fuel pool is emptied and all highly radioactive spent fuel is moved to dry cask storage, and to assure that towns continue to receive earliest possible notice of emergency situations at the plant.
Any questions?
Yes, who was speaking?
Tom Wyatt.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Should we just do a motion now to oppose these exemption requests?
Send a letter.
no less than 15 minutes. I mean, no more than 15 minutes. Because they're going to say, oh, well, an hour is the best we can do. Sorry?
You said the last paragraph, but that's not.
Yes, says early as possible,
Okay.
notice there. And I would think it would be better to change it to early as possible, notice no more than 15 minutes of emergency situations.
That seems appropriate to me.
Then why don't you correct the letter and send it?
All right, well, we'll work with David to get it the way it needs to be.
It would be appropriate to have a motion to send the letter out corrected.
I would accept, yes. So,
I move that we direct David to draft the letter as corrected for John's signature.
Is that your motion, Nick?
second.
Madam Chairman, since we're on teleconference meeting, the law requires roll call votes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
That goes Patricia Lemon, aye.
Nick Argy, aye.
Don Maggie, aye.
Now we're leaving.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Minutes of the previous meeting. Motion to accept?
Let's get another public comment.
Beth Gilgun, I am the, one of the assessors, I'm the assessor's clerk, and I'm also the treasurer. And I came tonight because I had seen this handout downstairs, and I just wanted to address one of the items on it, which is to take broadband, stop appropriating funds for broadband, saving $104,000. We do not appropriate $104,000 for broadband, we raise $104,000 for broadband through billing. There's a big difference. Let me finish, please. I am the one who puts in the tax recap, which sets the tax rate. This $104,000 is not included in the money that is to be raised and appropriated. And at the current time, the broadband bank account has a plus balance of $31,000.
And you have an appropriations, $104,000 written right on
We have a raise.
it. Okay, it says,
Raise?
No, this, if I may,
Oh,
Madam
am
Chairman.
I?
We have to reappropriate it, we do not raise it.
We don't raise it, we
When
appropriate
you
it.
see an article that says raise, it means taxes. When you see an article that says appropriate, it means spend. You see, and in this case, we collect fees, and we cannot spend them without appropriating.
but in putting the budget together, it's listed as an appropriation for the total of the money you need.
And
Okay,
it is,
if you didn't appropriate it, that would bring it down $100,000,
no,
and it would just fund itself.
no.
If you would,
If
if you
we
would
don't, if we,
examine the document I gave you last week, you'll see that under revenue sources, there's $104,000.
Right.
That is essentially out of clear air. It's from the fees. It's in the revenue side. It doesn't come from taxation. It comes from the fees paid.
I understand.
We have to pay our bills for broadband in order to collect the money. It's never cost the taxpayer anything.
I know, what you're saying is revenue neutral, but when you do a total of how much money has to be raised, it's in there, and then it's knocked back out on the revenue accrued. But it shouldn't be in there to begin with if it's paying for itself.
if we don't have it,
That's a,
He's correct. We could model it differently.
yeah, that's a dollar.
But it doesn't have any
$30
financial implications. Doesn't
He
have,
says 77 per thousand, so if you,
it doesn't have any implications because it's
It's
because
not
the
on the
revenue's
tax
there.
rate.
If we have a borrowing article, we borrow it, we show the borrowing revenue in, the spending of the revenue out, it's a wash, it's the same deal.
not according to my math, if you're adding it and then subtracting it, and we always get the same money amount back, and it should be more going towards lowering our tax rate, the money $70 a month to HughesNet, I run my own business, upload, download, instant message, everything. Why do I have to pay more money for that plus increase in tax?
Because
You're
you
not.
don't,
You don't.
and you never
You
have.
are not, and you never have. No,
The money was appropriated,
No.
and it never always.
it was never raised.
If it was,
If
It's
it's
the same
not
story.
raised, it's not on the tax rate.
It's the same story
I'm
for
gonna
the
take
transfer
transfer
station.
I might be back next week to.
Feel free to come see me and I'll see if I can explain it to you, and if not, you can have a discussion with the town accountant when she returns from vacation, and if that doesn't work, you could talk to our auditors.
No, I'd be, yeah, that's fine, as long as I can understand it, that's all, but right now, the way it's written on these things is an appropriation.
We have to appropriate, or we can't spend it. We could get $1 million in fee income and have an appropriation of $104,000, and we could only spend the $104,000. Moreover, if we don't have the revenue, I don't spend it.
Would there be a different way of presenting it
I'm sure there are several ways of presenting it.
that might make it clearer? You know, I'm just thinking. Maybe we should look at it.
It's pretty clear when you understand the fundamentals of taxation and town governance. There's another error in the handout, if I may address it. The selectman last week said the reason your taxes are up is because you don't come to town meeting. This is not town meeting. This is a selectmen's meeting. The selectmen do not say, or the selectmen ultimately do vote to approve the tax rate. Only town meeting can appropriate spending, vote to authorize borrowing. The selectmen are the executive function. The town meeting are the legislative function. The legislative function acts on the money articles, and it is the town meeting that, where the select board and finance committee recommendations with respect to school spending were not adhered to, and your taxes went up more than the finance committee or select board wished. So the first Monday in May is town meeting, and that's the big show. That's the Super Bowl of finance.
But if we don't come to these meetings to know that you're voting on whether you should appropriate this money, and then it's gonna go onto the warrant, I understand that.
Okay.
But you should be here first, where at least you can get a full explanation of it, rather than right at the meeting say you gotta vote on this thing, and you don't get all the information about how it's actually affecting your tax rate or anything like that. So it's still important to be here.
And it would have been accurate to say town meeting, not the selectmen's meeting, because that's what the selectmen said, and that's what in fact is the case.
yes,
Nancy Gilbert. Am I correct then that I shouldn't make a suggestion to the select board is the way of saving money on the budget before the budget comes before us at the town meeting? I have done some research, and I brought it to the meeting tonight to share with you, so perhaps there could be what I feel needs to be a correction, but maybe I should wait and just present it at the town meeting?
I don't agree with that.
I'd like to hear it.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear
No,
it.
I did some research on the ambulance, and many people today might not remember that it indeed is a donation. I understand the town of Orange is going to make our assessment, is what I understand they are calling it, which it really is not. In 2004, we paid $3,000, and we did for the first the next 5 years. And then as of 2009, it was $4,000. In 2013, it was $8,819. Well, I don't know whether it's the town of Orange that is just sending this out to us and we just pay it or not. I don't think we should be doing that. I, for one, feel that if, for instance, Northfield is coming to service us, perhaps we should think about splitting the pot up if we're gonna pay the same amount, or reducing the pot down. And I really feel that it's in black and white, because I went back in the last 10 years, and that's what it is. It's gone from 3,000 to 8,819. And it is not an assessment, it is a donation.
Nancy is correct, and I remember when it was a $2,000 donation. I
I only
remember
went
before
back
there
10
was a
years.
donation. And there's a difference between a donation and an assessment. And the notice we get, what Orange wants us to put on our town meeting warrant does now say assessment. But we haven't bought that term yet. It is a donation. And this is a service this is something like World Broadband. They aren't reducing that very expensive ambulance bill to you or your insurance company if you call 911. They're getting this in addition. The idea is that it was originally presented as a way to support equipment replacement. We do equipment replacement in Warwick Broadband out of the fee revenue that our customers pay us. We don't go back to the town. There could come a day when we ask the town to borrow some money that we'll pay back. But you're right, there are other ambulance services, and it looks to me to be a pretty lucrative business from the outside. I also wonder how much it's used to subsidize fire department operations in general.
Well, also, when it was initially started, they also were providing training to the EMTs in Warwick. That was part of the original plan, was to help certification, recertification, and now it's not done anymore.
You know, we do use Athol ambulance. If Orange is busy, they send Athol. We use Northfield. We use Winchester, New Hampshire, and even out of Greenfield. So we don't pay them anything. They still come. I mean, I'm not against giving Orange some money, but you know, we should be giving these other towns something if we're going to pay money out and not give it all to Orange, because they're not always available. You know, maybe we should make it a prorated thing. Every trip they get someone.
I remember an instance a couple of years ago when 2 out of 3 of Orange's ambulances were not in service. So, one thing that I've done subsequently is, they haven't been paid for 2015, fiscal year 2015. I'm waiting to get to the end of this fiscal year in June to make sure they don't come apart at the seams before sending them this donation.
I mean, again, I understand that Northfield is, you know, is offered to be a primary responder. They are also paramedic crew. I mean, so is Athol, so is Orange.
Maybe it's time to revisit this, to check with Northfield, see what their feelings are, if they charge us or not, or how much. And see if Orange would reconsider, as well as other towns that
That would be nice.
we use. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments? Nick?
Well, concerning the meeting, I need to put this on your calendar, et cetera. I'd like to know how many people here feel that the items 1 through 5 are their agenda as opposed to Steve's agenda.
Did you say that?
This meeting notice from Steve, says, let's all show up and voice our concern about the job we're doing. And he lists, 5 items that he thinks ought to be, addressed. And my question is whether any of you or all of you agree with the 5 items.
I haven't seen it.
No response.
at town meeting, like it's been said, but that's sometimes delayed. You know, something like this ambulance service has to be looked into before town meeting.
And also, I feel that there has been a lot of discussion about the school, and if we're going to be discussing the school, we should be looking at the overall budget, not just saying the school budget is what raised it all, and because it obviously is not true. So I think we should be looking at everything, not just the school.
Everything should lead up to town meeting, that's the thing.
Well, we did say at the last meeting that we would provide more information, and so we will, but not tonight.
Right.
And I think we'll look more at the design of our budget presentation and ask for some input, so that it's clear. Let's see,
Well, with respect to the school, a lot of you probably know, I was recently elected to the school committee. These comments are from town coordinator. I reviewed the current school budget, and it calls for 3% wage increases per year for teachers in the first 7 years of their service. And it calls for 3.5% increases each year in the second 7 years. And then the pay rate sort of tops out, and after 20 years, there's a bump of $1,500 to $2,000. This is, to me, a bit alarming, given that the town can only increase its assessments by 2.5% a year. 80% of the school's spending is wage and benefit related. When I raised this concern, I was told that the previous contract was 7% per year. Now, if I were getting a 3% raise in the first 7 years I was here, and I've been here 8, my wages would have gone up $10,000. So, I mean, on the one hand, you look at the school, and this is the marketplace, and we've got to be competitive in it. On the other hand, we have to figure out a way to right-size ourselves and deliver services efficiently and affordably. So, I'm very conflicted. There's not a clear right and clear wrong answer. But there is a problem having to do with our ability to pay on the one hand, and our real need to have meaningful and effective education, because there could be nothing more expensive that we fail to do than educate our kids. So, if everybody is just open to thinking outside of the box, not just protecting fiefdoms, but this is really complicated.
If we tried to get out of the Pioneer Valley district, I mean, I'm not familiar with it, is it really complicated? Because by what you're paying now, you could give every kid in this town tuition to go anywhere they want and pay less. So it's a crazy scenario here. Now, what is the process of saying we don't want to be in the regional thing and see if you can run it as a town school, and then subsidize the kids who go to high school or something? Is there a possibility of something like that?
we'll take a vote.
Well, it would take 1 or 2 votes by Warwick's town meeting to do so, and then ultimately it would take us retiring all of our share of the district debt before we could leave. And I'm not sure that it would be more affordable to do that, but I do think it'd be a good idea
Well,
to look at it.
the debt for the school is gone, right?
But we have our share of debt to
Of
the
his school.
regional high school, our school. There was just $400,000 of technology borrowing. There was some green communities boiler upgrade borrowing. We're stuck with the roof and sprinkler system borrowing on our school. It stands looking at. I'm not terribly optimistic that it would be substantially cheaper, but if something doesn't change, I'm pretty well convinced that eventually we become unsustainable and untenable. So,
Has Brennan got anywhere with getting out of the
Not to my knowledge. Until 1991, Warwick operated its own elementary school. At that point, it was kindergarten through 6th grade. We had our own school committee. Teachers were paid by the selectmen signing warrants like they do for my paycheck on a, what they call bi-weekly basis. And the workers' comp, well, you know, all the expenses were the town of Warwick's. And at the same time, we were operating under a union, supervisory union. That is to say, we were regionalized in terms of upper management, the superintendent's office, and some financial service and curriculum and a lot of important stuff that happens. But we had our own local school committee and we paid our own teachers, and our teachers were hired. We were incented to go full regional in about 1990 or 1991. And it was the financial carrot largely, which has been dangled in front of communities, that there would be more state aid, less local contribution. And a deal was struck that each of the four-member elementary school towns would keep their own school. Well, who could have imagined? When I was a selectman in 1988, we had 100 kids up there on the hill. The place was busting at the seams, and it was 3 classrooms. Who can imagine today, 25 years later, that we would have 38 kids from Warwick in preschool through 6th grade? It's a phenomenal demographic shift. But, and I haven't looked at what it would even take to close the Warwick school structurally. Forget about the underlying politics and bad taste. But it's another thing that needs to be studied to know the rules. I don't think we can use the building, which was 70% paid for by the state, for anything except educational purpose, without repaying that money.
But that's where I think you can get your representative involved, you know. Always look past something, because we're such a small town, you have no ability to analyze how much your tax base is gonna be, you don't have no industry or anything like that. It would have to be something that would have to go through the state house.
Yes, and we are, Franklin County is 1% of the population of Massachusetts, and Warwick is 1% of the population of Franklin County.
But we have,
I hate to be such a pessimist, but.
we have a representative, it's, I'll make them work for us. You know, they come here for the votes.
I'm not sure, all these strings need to be pulled to see what happens.
Work for them.
Anyone else? Okay, now, can we have approval of last meeting's minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes? So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Roll call vote.
Don Maggie, aye.
Aye, Tricia?
I'm confused, but I'll be happy to do this, but are we doing roll call votes on everything?
We have to on
Because-
a teleconference meeting.
I get it. I make a motion that.
Okay, do we have any, section, B?
Mercifully none.
Pipeline and FERC, town board joint letter, possible action.
I haven't seen an updated letter. Nick, do you want to say?
No, I haven't seen an updated letter either.
Okay. Then there is a letter the Conservation Commission sent to a wide audience, and you have a copy of it. So that's there just for information. And the COG is starting a steering committee. I'll put that on the next agenda. There's probably more interest in Warwick being on that committee than there are positions available.
increases for FY15 from $227,645 to $341,467. This allows us to put that money towards our new.
Well, this just increased the pot. So, looking at the prior minutes, the amount of our Chapter 90 money for the appropriation to the new front end loader was 300 and something, was that right? I can't remember. Yeah, we had about 360,000 in that grant, so add the new amount to it. And so this increase that the new governor released that Governor Patrick had refused to because of the financial hole the state's in, just about pays for this loader. So I'm looking for a motion by the select board to authorize the acting accountant to sign this chapter 90 request. You've already authorized it, we got Larry's signature on it, we got Dale Kowacki's on it. Our accountant, he prepared this warrant. He was Janice's boss before Janice came to work for us, and she made arrangements for him to come in and cover her while she's on vacation. We'd like to not delay on this, because we've got a good trade-in offer. So if we could authorize.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize John to sign the request.
Well, they want the accountant's signature, so could you make that Dale Kowacki, please?
Dale Kowacki to sign the request.
This is the project request for $125,100.
That is correct.
Any discussion? Yes,
Did this loader go up for bid?
No, it's came out the state bid that Metropolitan Planning Commission does.
yes,
I didn't realize you guys were coming up so fast with this. Would it be a problem if I had my neighbor Bob here using an appraiser for 10 different rags on equipment? Look at it before you go ahead and sign this thing, and it's not like it's a big rush. You can give us an honest opinion as to whether we can get more light on it, and that money could be used for road money, like doing more of Winchester, Old Winchester Road and Northfield Road and stuff like that before we jump into spending $120,000. I know it doesn't go into the tax and stuff like that, but it does take away from road money. So, I mean, just hold off until the next meeting and just have a person that specializes in it take a good look at it and everything else, and know if you're getting a fair trade, if it's in that bad shape, and whatnot. That's all I have.
I don't feel that's advisable. I've done pretty well auctioning town equipment off over the years, and this is, in my judgment, in the middle of the winter, is the best time to get the best trading price from John Deere. Volvo offered us a machine on state bid. It was over $20,000 more, and the guys didn't like it. It was less responsive off the throttle. We clearly need a new loader, and we clearly need to get rid of this one before it breaks in half in the road and leaves us without the ability to sand. This past weekend was atrocious, and this is a key piece of equipment. I argued with the highway department, with the highway superintendent, about downsizing a touch, save on fuel, buy a slightly less expensive machine, and became convinced. I would urge the select board to go ahead and follow through and send this project request in. It has to go to the state. They'll have to review it and sign off. It comes back to the select board. So in the meantime, by all means.
Yeah, I'm saying.
But I'm saying don't stop the process, because I don't think this trading value is going to
If the accountant signs it, are you committed to it then? And no matter if Bob says, you know, there's something we can do with this gave it a last one longer, and now we got $120,000 more for the roads. I don't think we really have much to lose by doing that. We're gonna lose a few $1,000s on the figure. It's compared to $120,000 on roads.
You'd say it's going to come back to the select.
Yeah, but if the accountant basically signs it, that's what I wanted to know, is it comes back to the select board, and can you do anything with it and say, no, we changed our mind, or whatever.
No, we can't.
I think the select board could vote to instruct the highway department not to pull the trigger even after this is a project request, the Department of Transportation approves the request. Larry doesn't order the machine, the matter's going into limbo. I don't think it would be wise to stop this.
You know, I've talked to the highway guys, highway foreman, and I think this, I don't know exactly when it was bought, I didn't ask that. But they've got troubles, they think, with the transmission and the engine smoking. And this machine's, what, 20?
It was purchased in '87 when I was on the board.
Okay. So it's,
I thought it was 72.
no, it's, I was gonna say, when I first moved here, I know we voted to buy a new pocket loader. And that's got some time on it. And if it breaks down, the cost of fixing it will eat up a lot of your money.
If you take the hours on that machine and multiply them by 50 miles per hour, which industrial machinery is rated by the hours operating rather than by idle miles, I think 50 miles in an hour is a reasonable approximation. This machine has close to 500,000 miles on it, and it expressed when you convert from hours. So typically that, but that's not, I mean, I definitely discussed at length the potential of rebuilding the machine, because it has gotten new pins, new center pins. It's been re-pushed in the bucket, but the motor and transmission are original equipment. The planetaries are, and the transmission is getting to be iffy. There was doubt that it will make it through this winter, and we want to unload it before it doesn't.
I think they offered us a picture.
I do too.
Can we vote on what we
Correct. One other thing.
in a second?
Given the concern about the tax rate, my intention is to look at the option of allocating Chapter 90 money to the operation of our highway department, so that instead of putting 100% of the highway grant into pavement or contractor services or the occasional piece of equipment, that, and we can't just say we're gonna operate the highway department off of it. We have to have discrete projects that the drainage work is gonna all be done on this road and this road and this road, but it is possible to pay our guys out of this highway grant. And by some people's measure, that approach is gonna be taking away from our investment in our highways. And by their measure, they'd be right. I'm just looking for ways to get more with less and allocate to have less impact on the residents.
I'd like to say something right now,
Yes.
which is that, at this point, we're not really talking about authorizing you to spend money, but rather authorizing you to accept money that we're being offered. And I think we'd be absolute fools if we didn't.
Yes, if that's the case, that's fine.
I don't believe that's the case. This is our money, but we cannot just spend it willy-nilly. Every project must go to the Department of Transportation and be approved.
So you're just authorizing to accept Chapter
Okay,
90
let's
money.
send it to the Department of Transportation, let them approve it or disapprove it. If they disapprove it, then we can go back to the drawing board. But if they approve it, then that doesn't mean we have to spend it instantly. Right?
She's correct.
Okay.
That's it.
So the motion on the table
I never
is
heard a second.
to authorize acting accountant Dale Kawaki to sign the project request form for $125,100 for New Town Meeting Water.
I also started out with Dawn to sign it because both of them need to sign it, both Dawn and Dale.
To also be signed by Select Board Chair Don Maine.
No, on the form, it's only the accountant.
Okay, well then remove that from my motion.
I was going to start to add it, so you're good.
All in favor? Don Maggie, aye. Nick,
Nick? All right.
Commissioner Lemon, aye.
thank you. Okay, broadband. Expectation regarding the committee's role in the town's FTTH or Wired West decision.
Well, are y'all familiar with Miriam's
Yes,
email dated January 12th?
yes.
The Select Board formed the committee to advise the Select Board on matters pertaining to broadband. She presumes that would include fiber optics. She notes that the committee has not been asked for advice within recent memory. She knows that I have made the suggestion, Town Coordinator David Young, have made the suggestion that mobile phone service become part of the broadband committee's charge. So that's down here on point 6 here under this heading. She states that she needs to resign from the broadband committee so that she can preside over the article for the fiber to the home and annual town meeting, and believes her capacity, her service in that capacity is more useful. I have been corresponding with Tom Wyatt because he's indicated some interest in being on the broadband committee to replace Miriam and being involved with the Wired West delegation of the town of Warwick. Miriam says that if the Select Board think the broadband committee can be helpful in informing the town about the fiber project, that she'll organize a meeting, preside over reorganization, and then submit her resignation. And she's looking for some clarification. Subsequently, I met with Tom and John Bradford. John is the alternate Wired West delegate, and subsequently, Tom indicated willingness to serve on the broadband committee and on the Warwick Wired West delegation.
Move, Dawn,
Yes,
I move that we appoint Tom Wyatt to the broadband committee as our delegate to Wired West.
second.
Was that and as our delegate to Wired West? Those are,
Comma as our delegate to
those are two different things. There's the Warwick Broadband Committee, and there is Wired West delegate. Those are two different things.
But my motion is that we appoint him to both of those positions.
Second. Any further discussion on this one?
Yeah.
Does he approve, does he agree to both? No, we're only two.
I'd like to speak for him, please. Oh, unfortunately, he's here.
I would like to be part of the Wired West delegation, and John and I have talked about operating as a team, because there's a lot happening in the next 6 months in preparation for town meeting. I would prefer to be the alternate, but we're talking about going to meetings together. He is a lot more familiar with what's been happening with Wired West than I am. So I would prefer to be the alternate.
there's every indication that they're willing to call on you to go.
Yes. I'm willing to be called on, but only one of us gets the vote. So,
Does that leave us on the motion?
The motion is that Tom, you be the delegate.
well, I wouldn't.
I wonder what John thinks.
Is he here?
Oh, no, he left.
Just allowing me to speak for him too.
Yes, David's saying, you know, I'm fine either way. I think in many ways, Tom has a better mind, for remembering what's going on, but, I'm thoroughly intending to work with him on this. Doesn't matter to me what it is.
Well, that would be my preference, is to be the alternate, and John be the delegate.
Then shall we revise the motion?
Patricia, would you agree to revise the motion to make Tom the wireless alternate, to leave the broadband committee membership alone?
I would be happy to.
And with the second,
Second. Any further discussion?
Wait, I've decided I want Tom to be the delegate.
Can somebody please take him outside?
All in favor?
I, Patricia,
I, Don Maggie.
I regard you, but
Thank you.
do we now have two alternates, or
Yes, we do.
do we want to run with that? Or do we want to revise John Bradford upward?
I think we need a delegate. I believe.
I don't know what their rules are, but I would say it would make it a little easier because I don't think an alternate can have a second alternate, although they
do
did
we
do that.
know whether John would be willing to serve as the delegate?
He's in the room and he has not run.
So that a yes, John?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, in that case, I move that we appoint John delegate to wireless
John Bradford.
on Bradford, that's right.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I, Patricia Lemon.
Aye, Don Maggie.
I regard you, but
We'll go back to the first. Yeah. Have we done anything to indicate to the broadband committee that we feel it's part of their charge to advise the select board of the town on advice to the home?
Well, what say you, Nick? I think we should have them, explain it, and I think they're the best equipped to do it.
I think we definitely need their advice.
We need a motion on that?
The record could express that the select board showed a consensus.
Okay, now we're down to Ted Katie.
Motion, please.
I might mention that I talked to Ted briefly, just before 5 p.m. because I thought he would probably be coming to the meeting, and if you look to it, he said, he hadn't been planning to come to the meeting, he hadn't been requested. Is there some confusion about this? To expedite things, I could take the two items because they're if his motion to clarify is passed, I would drop the decision, otherwise I would. So,
You all have
I think I will move, Ted's clarification, which is in a January 22nd,
January 11th.
Ted Katie
agree, January 11th?
Yes.
That motion.
It's the second paragraph of the body of the document. It's capital letters resolution.
And I would move its adoption.
Second.
You put down my second?
Have you read it, Patricia? Patricia?
I have read it in great detail and I second it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I had a question about that.
Yes.
I'm just wondering if John has read that, and as our WARWICK delegate, is there anything in that clarification that would tend to contradict the expectations from WARWICK, or is it simply to clarify what we are already agreeing we resolved to?
I would have to read it again. I briefly read it in the email about it,
Would you like to read it again?
more than anything.
Yeah, resolution.
So you're pausing for a minute.
Let's do this as amended.
Could I speak to the subject?
Yes.
I wrote to MBI's general counsel, Elizabeth Copeland, and with respect to the concern that Warwick may have unwittingly committed itself to expenditure of funds. And he wrote back that the resolution requested was not intended to authorize the incurrence of debt, nor could it do so under state law. The incurrence of town debt under state law requires 2/3 approval at town meeting, and Proposition 2.5 exclusion is required approval by town ballot as well. So in his next paragraph, it says, the purpose of the board resolution request was to demonstrate support at the level of the select board for pursuing the fiber network regional model in earnest, including presenting the question of authorizing a substantial amount of debt currently estimated to be required to town voters for approval. This was requested because NBI is in the process of expending state funds, exploring and developing a plan, and considering committing substantial additional funds to design and engineering, as well as legal work. The board votes are nothing more than good faith demonstrations of continued interest and support at political leadership levels, but help justify continued MBI expenditures to improve the available cost data and inform the entire discussion at the town level.
So this is all unnecessary.
It is unnecessary, but doesn't hurt.
All right. Yes,
Everybody feel better.
yes, Patricia.
Well, I will leave my second in place in that case.
Okay.
To
All in
answer-
favor?
Well, actually, I'll answer
I
the question,
I'll read that.
which is that I believe that you really don't want to stop the wireless process right now because we'll learn more, and what David said is correct. We are not actually committed to anything at this point.
I, Don Mandy.
Now, I have evidence for our record from outside counsel at MBI, to the effect that we haven't done this. What do you expect me to do with this resolution? We file it, we send it on to MBI, frame it?
We should clearly send it out with the NBI and
Okay, so I'll send it to their counsel. this is my understanding is this is not a revision of the
It is
resolution.
not, and in fact, it's language specifically.
It's an additional resolution to follow up and clarify the resolution already voted on. We have a-
It is not an amendment to that resolution.
I understand.
John, update from Wild West? John Bradford updating us on Wild West.
Wired West is moving into high gear. There are still a lot of unknowns about the financing and that sort of thing, but they did say at the last meeting that they would be ramping up education of the delegates so that we'd be able to talk about finer points of what's being done with the voters in the town. The current situation is that 34 towns passed the resolution and are considered to be viable by NBI and Wired West to move forward. So NBI is continuing to do planning and modeling and whatever else is needed to be done to figure out how the construction would be done and what the cost would actually be, what the cost would be expected. Wired West is pushing forward with a campaign to get each voter or each household in the town, the 34 towns, to commit a certain amount of money as earnest money. I did talk with their executive council or executive board and suggested they might want to consider Warwick as a separate case since we have already wired wireless, and that segment of Warwick would be something we could transition smoothly, and they would obviously remain for wireless and could get fiber at the same price. They would be agreeable to that. I have not heard anything back on that particular proposal. It seems to me we don't really need earnest money in Warwick because we've already got a concrete set of people who are taking a service at a comparable cost. And I don't know if I should mention, but I think there is consideration that if we go ahead with the wired, the wireless, or providing as it exists now, we're not trying to keep the fiber. So those people would have an option at the time the fiber was available, so it would be the only again. So I think it's a fairly good bet that we've got a better commitment ratio, more earnest commitment than many of them. Just saying that, I don't know whether that's going to become anything. I'm not quite sure where the letter is at this point. They are asking the select board of the towns add their voice to this deal and I would say that the Wired West initiative is probably worth considering for Warwick. It's very unlikely that we're going to get another time when the state is willing to put as much money as they agreed to put into this. The state is beginning, or is at least agreed in principle, to start paying out $40 million to NBI to start the process. So the ball is rolling. If towns do not take advantage of this, that money will not be available a few years in the future. They are unclear as to how long it would be, but it's not on the table. they are being open, and I think we should continue to support them until we see a definite reason not to. The fiber is a real big deal. And, well, I think I'll stop there and answer any questions.
Is there any chance that the state would increase?
I do not know. I don't think the climate is really good for that right now, but I don't know. My sense of it is this, if MBI can't prove that this 40 million, that this whole thing is gonna work, the state's not gonna be interested in pouring any more money into it. So I think we're at sort of the crux of the biscuit here.
I did ask one of the executive committee members about other sources of funds, specifically federal, which I know were pursued earlier in the process. And he said it's still possible, he didn't expect it to suit, maybe a year or two down the road. The other thing is when they shared the model, it was hypothetical numbers, but it was starting from July of 2015, I believe. He showed it out over 4 years. The whole approach is to use short-term borrowing and keep the interest rates very low for the first 4 years, so that the heavy amount of borrowing is when there's revenue coming in. Now, that may mean that people are paying things before they're actually activated. They may be paying, significant interest before they're actually activated. When each town comes on has to be figured out. But Warwick's situation is much different because we haven't have an active, wireless system that's generating feeds
And service.
And actually, I might speak a little more to that. The model that Wired West is putting forth, and again, we have to sort of evaluate whether we believe that works. The one they're putting forward is the first 3 years are interest-only payments on this anticipation.
I would look at it like construction financing, which then gets taken out by permanent financing.
So the money isn't actually borrowed until it's needed, which means there won't be interest payments until money starts being needed. The concept is to put the state money first and spend that. Then once the bond anticipation is needed, there is another year before the interest payments on that will actually due. Wired West feels that essentially should give them a 4-year window in which towns won't be required to pay anything. That it'll either be state money or it will be interest isn't due yet. So their hope is to have everyone connected by the time the actual costs start occurring. Just giving you that because Wired West worked really hard on trying to make it as palatable as possible for the once committed to the bond, though, the town would be in for a dollar and essentially responsible for the whole amount. There is no making that anything less than, a lot of money.
Maybe already get to that point of, it's like, have they already got to that point where they have actually hired someone for that and raised their tax rate $400?
Leverage, not like.
Leverage is going alone, they decided to do their own. It's not through Wired West. So, as far as I know,
But this, money, isn't that why they went along, because there was no money coming and they were ready to go?
I think, as I understand it, Laverick went ahead because they're a fairly wealthy town, and they really wanted fiber, and they wanted it soon. And they felt that what people were currently paying for phone, internet, and TV, would actually, once they put the fiber in, the cost to the taxpayer would be less than it was what they were currently paying. I believe that is their argument. I can't speak to specifics, but I know that they felt.
It just seems like a complicated, but
Well, I think that if you're going to argue the cost, I think you have to say, at some point, is internet connectivity paramount to the town surviving?
well, I understand, but I just, like I said, I've been using it. I guess he pays more money. It's up to, you know, I've had, I've talked to some friends, well, take that much, you know, it's fast. You know, someone works so fast.
Well, I understand, but I do think that with the change in the way internet is delivered, the satellite companies are in big trouble, especially on a consumer basis. They have a huge front-load expense. They put a satellite up, and then service degrades until they put the next one up. There are a lot of problems with satellite distribution, and I think it's going to be the same thing as with TV. It's going to be dealt with differently in the near future.
I just haven't had it, which is stupid. Plus, I know it's expensive, but these fiber optic cables is very expensive to repair. Whether you have to repair it, and then bring, I mean, 8 years ago, it cost $50,000 to repair it. I'm sure it got done.
Well, the investment is in the splicer, and once you've bought the splicer, your cost per repair is not anything dramatic. I mean, it's like any
But you
launch down.
basically willing a company to do all that stuff, right?
That is,
Hire another company.
there has to be,
Those expenses.
the community of the towns that are involved will essentially share the cost of all that. But presumably, the fees that are being brought in are being covered.
And what's to prevent Verizon, say, 2-3 years down the line, after everybody's completed, say, yeah, we'll give you $1 million. And you put it on the lines. And,
Return on
They haven't wanted it,
investment.
huh?
they haven't wanted it up till now.
They want it, and that's it.
Well,
They don't want to put the expenses up, but the government has put up most of the expenses.
Yeah, but I don't really know. I don't know what that is.
State that.
Nick was next.
It's, couple of questions. One, I heard David say that he looks at it as a construction bond. That is our GO bond, if I'm not mistaken, he looks at it as a construction bond.
No, I was making, during, one of the things that took the curse off this project in my mind, I was modeling it in my head at current bond interest rates of around 4% a year. And recently, Wired West announced that during construction, we're modeling it at the kind of money that Warwick is borrowing short term, 1/2 of 1%. On that basis, 1/2 of 1% during the 3 years of construction, Warwick taxpayers won't have to touch it. Warwick Broadband pays the $16,000. They won't borrow all the money day one, but if they did borrow $2 million on our behalf, and we had to pay 1/2 of 1%, that would be $20,000. It'll take a while to get that whole bit out there. The Warwick Broadband has revenues on the order of 90 to 100,000. We can cover that. The thing that concerns me most is, well, two things. One, we got a rural rural problem, big distances. Part of the problem went away when we had the middle mile to the town, fiber to the town hall, fiber to our towers. And it doubled the capacity of wireless or broadband just by virtue of better connectivity back to the internet. And removing that expense and a lot of them as a internet system's like a chain. We just went sort of funnel, smallest point through it. So there will be construction financing. I don't know what the proper term in this ballgame is, but that's what I'm calling it. Think about you're building a house. While you're building it, you got kind of a line of credit at the bank and a construction line, and they might not even charge you interest only. The expectation is we'll be paying 0.5%. Once the project's completed, each town will be its own segment pretty much. Then it's got to start amortizing the debt, and the model is using 4%. And if it's $2 million at 4%, that's $120,000. And that's a little more than what broadband is taking in total without meeting the operating expenses. So then they add the pizza of telephone, and they add the potential of this fiber to provide internet, and they add the, and yet, in my mind, you think about being able to go 10 times, 100 times faster than the current system. But so there will, the project, the town will be responsible for construction financing well, then when it gets up and running, then it starts amortizing its own expenses. One of besides the problem of, you've got these great distances and too many poles between houses. If this were Leverett, the neighborhoods are more dense. We've only got 325 potential premises and lots of poles in between. So it remains to be seen if we can do it, in my mind. Because I don't see how you take 40 other towns with the same problem, roll them up into a ball, and have anything but the same problem. The other thing working against us is that a lot of folks have already realized the savings of broadband through Warwick Broadband. So it isn't the situation in Leverett where folks had to have $70 worth of satellite. And here in Warwick, most of us consider satellite pretty poor second cousin. And if you think it's good, then we understand why you wouldn't think fiber was necessary. The same goes for that 20% of our 170 customers or so who have said, $30 is quite enough, Mr. Gunn. I used to have the 50, but 30 is enough for me, given how much money I want to pay, how much I use the internet, and in the background, what we deliver for $30 is as much or more as we delivered for $50 2 years ago. So folks are in general for $50 getting more. In my own case, I'm spending a lot less on television because I can stream Netflix and I can stream Hulu and I can watch HBO Go. And so I've already realized, come off a $100 a month television bill, come off a landline and a cell phone to be able to rely just on the cell phone because of Warwick Broadband. And I'm not paying $70 for satellite internet anymore, I'm paying $50 for Warwick Broadband. Most of our folks have already seen that financial benefit just going to our wireless system. So it's going to make it a question for folks. But it's no reason to throw up our hands and give up now. It's all the more reason to keep our eyes wide open and figure this out. The software that we've gotten use of is $5,000 a copy. We've got a 30-day evaluation copy, and I'll get creative about using different IP addresses. Email addresses to string it out for a couple more months. Or the select board may decide, boy, it makes sense to have more than just some consultant for MPI and somebody at Wired West having a copy of this model. And we may actually want to acquire it, but they stop holding it close to the chest. I'm able to get in there, I'm able to look at the assumptions.
Well, I thought I had, two questions that were pretty simple, but I never think of it.
I'm sorry, try it.
The first question, we just talked about, sort of, which is, are we paying for capital expenses, or are we paying for operating expenses on top of that? I don't know.
The latter.
I'm sorry?
The whole thing. The business has to be able to operate on a day-to-day and a month-to-month and year and year after year after year after basis. And that operation of that business has to be able to resolve all that massive debt. Notwithstanding $40 million of state bond money, there's still gonna be $80 million about with the general obligation bonds taken on by Wired West and the state, backstopped by us on the line. There is no question that we will be on the line for operating losses. We're also, as such, in a position that if there is positive margin over and above, that comes our way too. That's part of it. If you have a system like that, you don't just take the liability, you take the risk side. But yes, it's both. The proposal at this point is both. And I know you object to being on the line for operation losses. That is the proposal. We haven't accepted it, but that is the proposal.
My second question is, that's the one that gets really iffy, is how much faster is the system going to be than what we have?
That's potential to be hundreds of times.
It depends on what. Well,
Data costs,
And transport costs.
but the capability of fiber is
okay,
probably,
except that,
probably
what you buy is presumably limited to by what, to what the bonds are.
No, the
No.
same strand of fiber that you could subscribe to get a 50 meg pipe is capable of giving you 1,000 megs. But they're not gonna give it to you unless you wanna pay for it.
Who's paying?
The users,
the end user.
the end user.
The wire is the same, basically, and it's what you put on either end, it's gonna differ.
Well, the fiber, yeah, and what they're gonna charge you for is the amount of stuff you pass through the fiber, but the fiber has the capacity to provide everything through the gateway.
For example, we have fiber runs from Springfield to Warren Town Hall, from Springfield to the cell tower, from Springfield to Mount Grace. We have, each one of those fiber runs is capable of multiple gigabits. However, we pay for 20 megs to the town hall, because that's for our uses and our ability to pay for it. We pay for 100 megs to the mountain, because there are 100 and something customers who are connected to it. There are only, the 10 or 12 town hall users and people in the village center who use the equipment on the roof here, so 20 megs. But that pipe is, we want to write the order and pay the bill, I think it'd be a gigabit of internet connectivity. And all I'm talking about right now is transport. We also have to buy internet, just like when Steve buys internet from HughesNet. Well, they're a real ISP. We're basically reselling. We go buy from another ISP. So we buy 100 megs of internet sitting in Springfield, but I could buy like 1,000 megs of internet sitting in Cambridge for $600. But we buy 100 megs for $800 sitting in Springfield. It costs thousands of dollars to move that internet from Boston to Springfield. It costs money across the 123 middle mile network to just transport that internet that we bought and have sitting in Springfield. So the sky's the limit in terms of technological ability. It's like, what do you afford? And what do you need? Because if you're buying more than you need, you're wasting money.
Well, but the town puts X amount of money we have done that, what is the speed of the system we bought? Less than,
That's not a good rate. The relationship is gonna be between Wired West and whoever's managing the network. What Warwick is buying is the infrastructure that allows that data to move through Warwick.
doesn't the infrastructure include the fiber?
It includes the fiber, but it doesn't include bandwidth.
Doesn't include internet connectivity. If you could put a computer, if you owned a node on either end, you could put a computer on either end and talk to each other really fast, but you wouldn't have the ability to go on the rest of the internet without buying your way on. Scott would like to.
I was just gonna, I know when they put the presentation together from Wired West, they had some proposed packages, some ideas of what people we have available to purchase, and they had some examples around what they were expecting to offer as internet speed. And I don't remember off the top of my head whether 50 megabits was the biggest they were offering, or whether there was one above that. But if it's a question of, in your home, what speed are you going to have through the system, that might be the better answer. If you're asking the question of, over the next 20 years, how much faster can you offer services in the future, that would be a different answer. But I think Wired West was talking about offering individuals something on the order of 50 or 100 megabits. I forget what the top end offering they were listing, which is about 10 times what most people are getting, well, 10 to 100 times of what people are getting now through broadband, depending on how you're connecting.
So, does that mean the answer to my question is 10 to 100 times?
If the question is, what speed are you getting in your house, I think that would be, in my house I get up to about 3 megabits per second. Some people can get more if they've got a line of sight to Mount Grace. And through fiber, individuals are going to be able to get, again, I don't remember whether they were saying 50, they were saying 100, what their top tier was going to be. A better answer would be, at the same price point, the $50 a month bill for just internet through Wired West, what are they going to offer for that? I'm not sure what that answer is. It's probably at least 25, if not 50 megabits, but I don't know what they're proposing there. I'm not sure that's finalized yet either.
Well, is the answer to my question 10 to 100, or is the answer to my question, I don't know?
I think it's I don't know, because they haven't spec'd out all the equipment that's going to be used. But it's
Well, we
significantly
should pay for something with the question. The answer to the question is I don't know. We shouldn't pay anything for something.
Basically,
Answer to
We're
the
going
question
to
is I
be
don't know.
giving that information, but we don't have it yet. I can't give you something we don't have.
If I had 50 miles in there, and then I decide what to do.
Yes, Tom.
Okay.
I think Scott is correct that they have not determined what the packages are going to be. They don't have the whole financial model set out yet. But to assume that it's going to be more than $70 a month, I wouldn't assume that. Leverett's a whole different story. You've got a UMass bedroom there. We don't have a UMass.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the cost though, but they gotta take out the same bill.
Anyway, the real point that I want to make is that we don't live in Europe. We don't live in a place where there's a national drive to support this kind of technology. And we've got to do it a large part ourselves. And I think one of the key things with this is knowing whether the other towns that are involved in this are really as committed, if they really understand what they're doing, because we don't want to get involved in something where suddenly a bunch of towns are defaulting. And that's my real interest in this, is that I want to say to the town of Warwick, at the town meeting, that I trust these towns, that they really know what they're doing. And that was a large part of what my wife did as liaison, was go to these towns and really try to explain it. And, anyway, enough.
I would if for no other reason, because we need to get qualified, I believe the way it's gonna work in the long run, we need to get qualified for the bond thing in order to get a piece of the state money if we decide to go it ourselves. So, I don't think we lose anything by staying in the process and watching how it pans out. We'll learn a lot, and I just think we really need to move forward and try to, at least secure, I think that it's wise to try to secure, a place, for the money. Just, we really want to look like we're playing, and we want the state to say, yeah, these people are really serious.
Thank you. David?
I think the first step that I'll be engaged in with the operating model will be looking at the assumptions. Are they reasonable? Is the expected margin on television reasonable in the context of, cable business, cable television, satellite television versus what you can get over a data pack? And I don't really have too much more to say, we just got access to the model. And it's, guy who emailed it to me, said it took him, 2 hours and something to send it to me on his DSL connection. It was, 70 or 80 megs, and it took about 20 seconds to download it on Town Hall Fiber. So, from that standpoint, fiber's a real winner, but you can't afford what we pay on the middle mile. You can't just build extensions off the middle mile and pay the Axiom price. It doesn't work. We have to pay, just for transport from Warwick Town Hall for 20 megs, we have to pay a couple $100 every month. So that's all.
What about cellular? What happened? We lost our first connection with the cellular company.
Well, it isn't lost, but our underlying problem is that even having gone to third-tier provider and said, we now have fiber to both our towers, we have money in the bank, and we'll buy the cellular equipment, put it on the towers. They said to me, fine, but since you don't own the radio spectrum, you can't do that. So that's where we are, is trying to get Sprint or Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile or somebody play ball with us. The technology we're looking out is being deployed in Vermont in conjunction with the fiber along major highways, their version of the middle mile project. It's taking several years longer. So obviously their efforts at Coverage Co. are with making that project work and making money there. It's not so much with trying to open a new frontier unserved by cellular Massachusetts. There are maybe 2 or 3% of the country is in the situation that Warwick is in cell service. So the reason I have this on the agenda is that Miriam had a objection to mixing this into the soup at this time. And the select board made cellular coverage the #1 community development priority. The question for us has to do with fiber to the home, and would we be badly serving that prospect by adding this now? Can we wait? We waited so many years. Can we wait another 5 or 6 months to get back on this course? Should it have its own committee? It's a bad idea to add it to this committee. To me, cellular is absolutely part of the broadband question. Because I can take my phone, go to most places in the country, and get 17 meg download. But you can't get on Warwick Broadband. So it's another way to deliver broadband. by a pipe, you could run that pipe fully, 24/7, and, you know, you're not in a 10 gigabit plan or 5 gigabit plan, being charged on how you use it, you get the pipe. But, I think the suggestion is, that Miriam makes, that this is, not a good time to add it as merit.
Nick?
To me, it's up to the committee if they want to do it. I think that's a good thing, and we should encourage it, but if they don't want to do it,
Yes.
I would say, given what I know so far, that the committee is going to be flat out, full town meeting, wanting to gather information the town needs to evaluate the environment. I think, I agree with David, cell phone is part of running, but perhaps hold on until we have the information we need to make a decision.
At this point, I feel that the important thing for them to be spending their time on is the fiber optic issue. But I would like us, if they feel it's appropriate, to add to their reason for existing, or change the whole committee, but I think that it's too early to start talking about it. Set up another committee that would be working specifically on cellular.
I don't know whether we need a motion or not, but if I were to make a motion to not assign, cellular to the broadband committee, but to take that issue up again after town meeting.
I quite agree.
And I do too.
So that's a motion.
Second motion. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye, John, thank you. The electric and SOLTAS settlement.
I don't want to say a lot in open session, and I don't want to go to executive session. So let me try this in open session. And we're going to have to say, we're going to executive session. We've got the AG involved, presently involved in the YMCA. Both my contact who's board member of the hospital and the Attorney General would like us to remain in solidarity with the agent doing its investigation on that, going to that. That's, the AG requested of me that my conversation with her be privileged. That said, she conveyed a higher settlement offer from SOLTAS. That's my question is, in light of the fact that if we let the Attorney General deal with this one, take a look at whether there was any fraud involved, whether there was any practice, knowing that in the end, the most we'll get are our actual damages. Or the Attorney General SOLTAS, based on information that we provided that SOLTAS didn't have a real offer and increase the level of what the AG would like us to do is not agree to sell. Sit back and I can say that the dollar amount is pleasing to us. We would eventually get. It did explain that our contribution AG, because they're trying to make the AG go away. The AG is clearly not going away. And so the fact of the matter is, it's become very.
Doesn't someone have to give us
They counted their own offer. We did not do that. We did not give them the counter offer. I gave the town council who before we accomplished it, SOLTAS countered their own counter offer.
And they're not really
May I speak for
well,
a moment?
let's put it this way, do we have anything before us from SOLTAS as to which we need to say? Yay, nay, or counter?
Do you consider a counteroffer conveyed by the Attorney General's office to be a counteroffer?
I don't think so. I think they need to get the facts.
Tricia, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I quite agree with you that we should ignore it. However, I want to bring up the issue of apparently the offer had to do with both the town of Peterson and the town of Warwick and the Attorney General approving this before they would study.
And the Attorney General,
It was pretty moot to me that the AG's office is not going to discuss it.
I agree. The AG's office is not going to settle. It's highly unlikely that our counteroffer or our joining Peterson and accepting an offer will result in the settlement because they're trying to stop the investigation. And the AG is not going to stop.
Well, let's send the.
We don't have to do it.
That's right, that's why
I highly recommend that you not counteroffer, just right, the AG's office. Do ask for triple damages, it should be on the buyer side. Because that's what we were after at the beginning. We felt that their conduct was such that we deserved more than simple damages. Now there's been a recalculation of simple damages. If we're going, I'm suggesting that if we're going for triple damages, it should be based on that new basis, not something that's left out of the law.
we asked our town council to draft a counter offer that is 3 times the new offer.
Assuming that anything's on the table, which I'm not assuming anything's on the table, you and I discussed an appropriate counteroffer to that.
Okay, so if what's on the table changes, the counteroffer should be 3 times that. Because the counteroffer was based on our simple damages, not on anything more than simple damages.
But my motion says,
If you have an option,
Could you repeat
I
it?
moved that we ask our town council to draft a counter offer that's 3 times the current offer.
I stopped doing job about 2 years ago, but.
Second.
Mr. Person, the current offer that's coming to the AG's office is
yeah, Tricia, do you mean the current offer
I mean,
transmitted to us through the
the AG
AG?
conveyed from, conveyed
I know, I think
I'm glad you are.
Roll call.
I've already voted yes.
When I moved So, and then just say motion carried 3.
Nope, that's, you have to say aye. Okay, our next meeting is the 2nd of February.
Now, how many budgets? Or is this like preliminary?
Tricia, you have anything?
No, I don't.